Jordi presented the general part. I zoom in into two research activities which we did in collaboration with international partners, and how these things bear fruits. The first one is collaboration to develop a robust molecular diagnostic platform suitable for low resource countries, where I develop isothermal heat bath for lamp using beeswax nanocomposite as a thermal buffer, in collaboration with Professor Johannes Kabisch, formerly in Germany, now working in NTNU, and the other one is Dr. Jenny Molly from University of Cambridge. WHO recommends diagnostic devices or systems suitable for low-resource countries should meet the ASSURED criteria. ASSURED is an acronym for affordable, sensitive, specific, user-friendly, rapid, and robust, equipment-free, and deliverable to end users. In this regard, when we say affordable, simplified in instrumentation, and sensitive, it has to be a molecular diagnostic system with it can amplify to 10⁹ copies in 30 minutes. This is a brief summary of what the device or the platform we envisaged and what we tried to show in some forms, and primer designs and multiplexing capacity. And the other one, it helps us to no complicated detection mechanism, but with visually detected using pH-sensitive dyes, and the time to result is some 30 minutes. Not well equipped with facility, and it doesn't take a grid electricity because it's very hard to find in developing country. And the other one meant to be point of deliverable to end users when, say, point of care service. So diagnosis comprise normally two, usually the hardware and the reagent component. I will come to the hardware part in the next slides, but for the reagents, where we worked together with our international collaborators, the reagents include enzymes, buffering agents, oligonucleotides, and primers. The key reagents for molecular diagnosis are enzymes, and these enzymes usually requires up to -20 degrees centigrade to put it, and it's very hardly to get an infrastructure which can maintain -20 degrees centigrade, let alone this infrastructure. It is very hardly possible to get electricity in most part of our country. So to overcome these things, the two approach were proposed, and one is the sport display technology, and the other with Professor Johannes and that of University from Texas in lyophilized long BST for polymerase, and then we plan to make assay optimization protocol for COVID. Yeah, for COVID gave us a very hard time for the global community, but it is a blessing in disguise for us, because we were planning to make the hardware for lamp for long, but when the COVID comes, this idea of making the lamp hardware get some funding, and with that we realized the device. So the general consideration for heater design was optimal assay temperature. There is some optimal temperature at which the assay is optimized to amplify, and it has the assay tolerance to temperature fluctuation has also very high implication on the specificity or on the sensitivity, because for viral samples, plus or minus 0.5 degrees centigrade fluctuation from that constant temperature of amplification may result in 50% decrease of sensitivity, and it also requires minimum holdover time, maximum warm-up time, and sample volume and sample formats are very important parameters. So talking of the Ethiopian case, for example, talking of the temperature variation, Ethiopia's altitude vary from -140 below sea level to 4,900 above sea level, meter above sea level. So the average ambient temperature correspondingly varies from 2 degrees centigrade and up to 43 degrees centigrade. So in this whole range of temperature, to maintain a constant temperature, it's a very challenging task. And had it been in a developed country where there is electricity available, we can use a Pelcher effect material, as in PCR, but that one is equipment intensive. So that is ruled out from applying the Ashford criteria. We opted for a phase change material. As you know, when materials change their phase, they maintain some constant temperature, which is a latent heat of fusion. So for that, we selected beeswax. Coincidentally, this beeswax, the beeswax melts at the temperature where most of the amplification temperature for bacterial and viral sample. So with effective thermal insulation, we hope that we can realize it. This one. And the other requirement beyond this phase transition point, it has to have high latent heat of fusion, and it should have high thermal conductivity. Unfortunately, the beeswax has low thermal conductivity, but I'll talk how we get over this challenge, and the remaining things it fulfills very well, those mentioned here. So as you can see from this diagram, this is a differential scanning calorimeter. This deep area is where, with a constant temperature, it absorbs the differential. With a constant temperature, it absorbs this amount of minus 3.32 milliwatt for just 1 milligram of beeswax. That means when we calculate the latent heat of fusion is about 231 kilojoule per kg. Just to change in 1 degree centigrade, it has to absorb at least this amount of energy. That means 56 times more than that of water-filled heat bath. So water is so we want to take advantage of this huge latent heat of fusion, and to increase its thermal conductivity, we make a copper oxide nanoparticle using sol gel preparation, which is a very facile method, and we confirmed that it is through X-ray diffraction, especially this 35, the 31 and 38 peaks are unindicative of the copper oxide nanoparticle. So we blended it with beeswax so that we engineered a composite phase change material, which is nearly, as you can see from this figure, it's nearly in liquid and semi-liquid state, indicating of the engineered phase change material has a sharp melting point at 63.2 degrees centigrade, and which is a desirable characteristic from the point of assay amplification, and provides one more degrees of freedom to optimize efficient heat transfer mechanism via the interplay of convective and conductive heat transfer. So, and it also may be applicable, because I saw some paper as well that from paraffin wax they try to make lab-on-chip diagnostic format. You can also, because it has very high latent heat of fusion. Also, the other challenge is to make it high throughput, to use the standard molecular biology microarray, which with a 96 tubes. So for that, we have to assure that it has the thermal homogeneity has to be maintained. So for that, we have to include some fins. As you can see, the heat is supplied just below. As you can see here, this is the heat supplying things, and the wax is deposited here, and so this one can assure that with the fractal geometry can assure that the uniformity of heat transfer. So on top of this, we put our assays to test it. This is maintain an isothermal temperature, that's constant temperature for 18 minutes, even after the insulated chamber lid were opened, and we tested for some for COVID. And now, when I say platform, what I mean by platform is once we establish the hardware and the enzyme stuff, so it's a matter of changing from malaria to plant diseases to other animal diseases and to all other diseases. It's about changing the primer. So once this, by platform is just like something high ground, so that you can see the problems in every direction, and once that problem is coming, so we can design the primer, so we can optimize to this temperature up to 63 degrees centigrade, so we can implement it. We are not short of problems when it comes in developing country when it comes to diseases. So this service. The other one I go through quickly. Curbing the adverse public health and socio-economic impacts of mycotoxins, which is being undertaken in collaboration with Beijing Genomic Institute, even the African Union Center for Science and Industrial Research in South Africa, and two from Ethiopia, and at one part on the instrumentation aspect, we also get a collaboration from North Carolina Agricultural and Technology University, and University of Dar es Salaam from Tanzania is also involved. What I learned yesterday that mycotoxin is not as such a problem in Europe for two things. First, most of the products, agricultural products which came from Africa, have a stringent regulation, because about 0.5 microgram per kg of things is discarded, not to be exported from Africa. But when it comes to Ethiopia, we don't have this facility. We only use for export commodities only this characterization or this measurement is used. But Africans have also the right to have a safe food, and to get this safe food, they cannot afford, because one measurement or one quantification takes about 3,000 birr in Ethiopian context, and there are only two labs that provide this service for the population of 120 million people. So, mycotoxin is highly toxic metabolite produced by molds in contaminated foods, represents serious health risk for human and animal health, and mycotoxin contamination affects up to 85% of staple foods in Africa, because the Africa climate is a bit favorable for fungal growth. It's humid and warm. When fungus gets humid and warm environment, it's spread very fast, and so because of that, it affects the African economy very badly, because even in Ethiopia, 30% of the coffee fail to be exported because of the presence of fusarium, one kind of aflatoxin, and difficulty to decontaminate due to its temperature resistance. And if animals feed a contaminated feed, and it goes through all the way, and you can get in the milks of in the milk taken from that cattle, you will see still the aflatoxin. So it doesn't degrade through the digestive system when it goes through. So with that, child takes this milk, and prolonged exposure to even minimal amount of the mycotoxin is resulting in lately reported finding is that it leads to child stunting. So in a way, aflatoxin is killing Africa's future in this sense. So there is a Pan-African initiative to deal with this problem, and my institute, the Bio and Emerging Technology Institute, is an executing agency for PACA, Pan-African Partnership for Aflatoxin Control in Africa. So we take part on that initiative, representing Ethiopia. So we designed around, as you can see from here, around 10 projects, but these are the one who get through funding. The first one is biocontrol of aflatoxin using ataxogenic Aspergillus flavus strain. It is in collaboration with Beijing Genomic Institute and that of the Pan-African PACA. The idea of this research is to get ataxogenic Aspergillus flavus, so that we can crowd out those toxin-producing strains at the end of the harvesting season. And the other one is using lactic acid bacteria to inhibit fungal growth. And the second approach is a chemical method, combating aflatoxin with neutral electrolyzed water, which is a very simplest method, and it's affordable. As I will show you in the next slide, this method make use of only salt and water, and so that farmers can use post-harvest in the post-harvest even at their tablewares. And the other one, notable one, is this one: adsorption of aflatoxin from contaminated milks using bentonite and zeolites, led by Dr. Wandimagay Mamo. It's also there is also a collaboration with a university from Portugal on this regard. As I told you, milks, minimal exposure through milks led to child stunting. And the other one is detection. Also is one way of combating its impact. The first one on this regard is detection of aflatoxin B in food samples using smartphone-based nanosensors. This not pushing that much, but this one we get through the. It is truly interdisciplinary research, portable machine learning based mid-infrared spectroscopic sensor development for screening mycotoxin contamination in field. And we have collected enough data for from the biotech aspect, that is the metabolomics, how the host and the fungal interacts, and the intermediate molecules leading up to the things, so that we can pick some fingerprint molecules to teach or to learn the machine, so that the sensor is a very simplified one. And this is somehow at some stage, and through funding, if we get funding, we are about to realize the device instrumentation aspect. The new synthesis follows, as I said earlier, it's very simple. There is a membrane, ion exchange membrane. So we start with a 0.2 molar of sodium chloride, and we apply the direct DC voltage of 12 volt and current of 1.1 ampere. And we did the electrolysis for 20 minutes, and our solution was pH is 7.1, redox potential 974 millivolt, and with this, the most impact comes from the synergistic effect of the pH, the redox potential, and the available chlorine content. And once we prepared this one, we tested with a duplicate sample for 10 to the power of 0 for the stock solution, and then for 10 to the power with the serial dilution 10 to the power of -2, and in all of the cases 100% inhibition of the growth of the fungus, and this is corresponding control samples. And as you can see, it grew. We didn't stop here. We just tried to make a prototype by 3D printing it. As you can see it, with 3D printer, we built this one. It can produce 1 liter. So 1 liter, we mean at a time from what we produce, we can make 100 liter of it, because as you see from the previous slide here, 10 to the power of -2 is also effective on. This is some contamination. I think this one is a real one. This is we took the picture very late time. After 3-4 days, there was nothing of this sort in the sample. So with 1 liter, we can produce about 90 to 100 liters, so that the farmers put it in their post-harvest silos, so that they can control or fight the aflatoxin exposure. And this one that I told you, that thank you so much if you do have questions. Thank you.